If you're young and in love, please listen to me carefully, because I'm about to tell you a story I've kept buried for over 40 years, a story about the only man I ever loved and the letter I wrote for him, but never sent. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 60 years old, and I live alone in a quiet little house in Ohio. People in my neighborhood know me as the sweet old lady who grows roses, but no one knows that every night before I sleep, I open an old wooden box, pull out a faded envelope, and whisper the same words I've whispered for decades. Daniel, I'm sorry. I was too late. I wasn't always this quiet. I wasn't always this lonely. Once. I was 19, wild-hearted, full of life, and foolish enough to believe that love could stop time, and maybe, just maybe, it almost did. It was the summer of 1969. The air smelled like freshly cut grass, gasoline, and freedom. The kind of summer where teenagers stayed out until midnight and made promises they had no right to make. That was the summer I met him. Daniel Carter. Tall, suntanned, soft brown hair falling over his forehead. And those eyes, God, those sea blue eyes that looked straight into your soul without asking permission. He wasn't like the boys in our town. While others talked loudly to be noticed, he stayed quiet, and still somehow stole every heartbeat in the room. The first time I saw him, he was sitting by himself at Miller's Diner, flipping a small silver coin between his fingers. I don't know what came over me, but I walked right up to him and said, "You look like you're waiting for someone." He looked up, slightly startled, then smiled. Maybe I was. That was the moment my life changed, but I didn't know then that I would spend the next 4 decades waiting for him. People say love begins with fireworks, but ours began with silence. Daniel and I didn't fall in love loudly. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic confessions, just quiet moments that stitched themselves into my heart before I even realized it. We started meeting at Miller's Diner every evening, at the same red leather booth near the jukebox. I always ordered cherry pie, and he always ordered black coffee, no sugar. One evening, I couldn't help but ask, "Why don't you ever add sugar?" He smirked and said, "Some things are meant to be taken as they are." I laughed. But later that night, I replayed that line over and over because I was beginning to understand Daniel was one of those things, raw, unpolished, honest. We never planned our meetings. We just showed up as if our hearts already had an agreement. Sometimes we'd walk to Willow Lake, where the fireflies danced over the water like tiny lanterns. I remember one evening clearly. We were sitting on the wooden dock, our feet dangling above the dark water. The sky was streaked with orange and violet, the sun slowly collapsing behind the hills. I felt his shoulder brush against mine. My heart went still. I didn't want to scare the moment away, so I whispered, "Do you ever wish time could stop?" He didn't answer right away. Then softly he said, "It just did." That was the first time I knew I loved him. Not the kind of love you read in books. Not the loud, reckless kind. It was the kind that settles into your bones. The kind that makes you believe that maybe, just maybe, you had lived your entire life wrong until that moment, but life has a cruel way of walking in when you least expect it. One afternoon in July, I arrived at the diner to find Daniel already there, but this time, he wasn't flipping his coin. He was holding a folded letter. Hands trembling, his coffee sat untouched. I sat down slowly. He didn't smile. I whispered, "What is it?" He swallowed hard before placing the letter on the table. U.S. Army. Draft notice. He had been called to serve in Vietnam. The world suddenly felt too quiet. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. "No, they can't take you." But all I managed was a broken whisper. "When 2 weeks, he said softly. And that was when I realized falling in love was easy, but keeping it was war. The days that followed felt unreal, like I was living inside someone else's life, watching it fall apart quietly. Daniel and I didn't talk much after that, not because we had nothing to say, but because there were no words big enough to hold the fear we carried. Instead, we just started collecting moments like children, picking seashells before the tide washes them away. We went to all our favorite places. The diner, where he carved our initials under the table with his pocket knife. Willow Lake, where we skipped stones until our wrists ached. And Miller's Hill, the highest point in town, where the wind was so strong it felt like it could carry our secrets away. On the last evening before he was to leave, we climbed Miller's Hill one final time. The sky was bruised purple, the sun sinking like a dying ember. Daniel sat beside me on the grass, knees pulled up, arms around them, for a long time. Neither of us spoke. Then quietly he asked, "Do you believe in promises?" I frowned. "What kind of promises?" He turned to me, those sea blue eyes glistening in the fading light, the kind made without words. Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver coin. The one I'd seen him flip so many times he placed it in my hand. When I come back, flip this. If it lands on heads, I'll marry you. If it lands on tails, I'll marry you anyway. I laughed through my tears. That's cheating. Maybe, he whispered, but I'm not leaving anything to chance. That night, I lay awake with the coin pressed against my chest. I didn't sleep. I wrote instead. I wrote my first letter to him. Dear Daniel, I don't know how soldiers survive wars, but if your heart ever grows heavy out there, promise me you'll think of home. Not of buildings or streets, but of me. Think of my laughter. Think of my stubbornness. Think of that day by the lake when you said time stopped, because it did. For me too, come back to me. Maggie. I placed the letter in an envelope the next morning. I planned to give it to him before he left, but fate always arrives early. I was still getting dressed when I heard the sound of a bus engine outside my house. I ran to the window. It was leaving without me. I flew out of the house barefoot, letter in hand, sprinting down the road like a madwoman. Daniel. Dust filled the air as the bus turned the corner. I chased it until my lungs burned and my legs gave out by the time I collapsed onto the gravel. It was gone, so was he, and I was left holding the letter I never sent. They say life goes on, but mine didn't. Everyone around me kept moving, going to college, getting jobs, falling in love, but I was stuck at that gravel road forever, reaching out to a bus that had already left. Every morning, I walked to Hilford Post Office clutching a fresh envelope at first. My letters were hopeful. Are you eating well? Are the nights cold? Do you still flip coins when you're nervous? I told him about the townsfolk, Mrs. Green's new puppy, Mr. Wilson repainting his fence for the 4th time, the Miller's diner replacing their old jukebox. I wrote as if he was still sitting across from me, sipping black coffee. Weeks turned into months. His first letter came in late October. I remember my hands shaking so hard I nearly tore the envelope. It read, Maggie, the nights are loud. Not with music or laughter, but with explosions. Sometimes I close my eyes and try to hear your voice instead. There's a boy here, only 18. He cries at night. Says he misses his mother. I tell him about you. I tell him how you chase squirrels away from your roses. How you laugh before the punchline. How you say, coffee is sad soup. He laughed. You saved him for a night. Without even knowing it, keep writing. Your letters are my oxygen, Daniel. I pressed that letter against my lips and wept. He was alive. He was thinking of me, and that was enough. For a while, winter came. Snow covered the roads, but not my routine. Every morning, another letter. I dreamt of you last night. You were angry because I overcooked the toast. Come home so I can burn it again. I kissed your coin today. Does that count as cheating? If you come back with a beard, I'll shave it myself. And then, silence. Days passed with no response. Days turned into 3 weeks. 3 weeks turned into 2 months. I tried to stay calm. War is unpredictable, I told myself. But fear is a parasite. It crawls into your mind and whispers lies. What if he forgot you? What if he moved on? What if he's gone? One evening, unable to take it anymore, I walked to Willow Lake. The water was frozen over, a glass mirror reflecting my loneliness. I sat at the edge, clutching his coin in one hand and my latest letter in the other. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the coin into the ice and walk away, but instead, I wrote one last line before sealing the envelope. Even if you never write again, I will keep writing, because love doesn't disappear with silence. The next morning, I went to the post office, same as always, but this time, something was different. The mailman looked at me strangely. Maggie, he said softly, there's something for you. He handed me an envelope thicker than usual. My heart pounded. I turned it over. It wasn't Daniel's handwriting. It was U.S. Department of the Army. My hands went cold. The envelope felt heavier than paper, as if it carried the weight of destiny itself. I didn't open it right there. I see OULDN, single quotes T, instead. I walked past the post office, past the church, past Miller's diner where our initials still lay carved beneath the table. My feet moved on their own, until I found myself standing at Willow Lake. The ice had begun to melt. Shimmering beneath the pale morning sun, I sat at the edge, and only then did I open the letter. Dear Miss Margaret Collins, we regret to inform you that Private Daniel Carter went missing in action. During an operation in Da Nang province, the words blurred. Missing in action, not dead, not alive, just lost, suspended somewhere between existence and memory. I stared at the lake. I wanted the skies to scream. I wanted the earth to split apart, but everything stayed silent, just like the moment he left, just like every night since. I held the letter close to my chest. Missing, I whispered. How can someone be missing from the world but present in every breath I take? That night, I pulled out all the letters I had written him, every single one. 47 envelopes, some stained with tears, some smudged with rushed ink, some still smelling faintly of roses. I lined them all across my bed like ghosts of conversations we never finished. Then, I wrote one more. Daniel, they say, you're missing. But I know better. You're here in every corner of this house. In every beat of my heart, people think grief is loud. But mine is silent. Like waiting for a bus that never comes. If you are alive, come back to me. If you are gone, wait for me. Either way, I am still yours. Maggie. I sealed it, pressed my lips against it, and placed it in the same wooden box where his coin now rested. 40 years have passed since that day. I never married. People ask why. I just smile and say, because I'm still waiting. I don't know if this video will reach the young or the lonely, or someone who is just one word away from losing everything. But if you are listening, don't wait. Don't wait to say I love you. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for a perfect moment, because one day you might find yourself like me, holding a lifetime of unsent words and a letter you never mailed. Some letters should never stay unsent.